books was in. The books are in. Yep. They in. They here. Black African Power, ETM Hotel, Rennie Shawn. Welcome in peace. My name is Shawn. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. Good morning, good afternoon. Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you into. I see we got some people in the chat already. Yeah, I was supposed to go live this morning, but I was asleep. And then when I woke up, I started finishing a book that I was almost done with. Then I got to reading the appendix section. So I just kept on pushing the time out. And, I was rocking like that. But, yeah, man, y'all already know, man. Like the show, share the show. Tell a friend, tell a friend. Let's get this thing cracking in just a minute, man. I know a lot of people, doing the family thing. Probably ripping and running, staying safe from COVID. There was a big explosion downtown in our city. It's all over CNN. People hitting me up asking, was I all right? Man, I wasn't moved. I wasn't bothered. But yeah, that was a little situation. It was a little situation downtown. Messed up a lot of stuff down there. You know what I'm saying? It looked terrorist attackish. So I really can't really comment on it. They'll figure all that out on their own. I don't do the police job. You won't catch me on social media indicting anybody. However, man, I got like a nice little impactful show today. And we just want to deal with something that people keep, shooting around social media, you know what I'm saying? And we always gonna start out with something, but at the end of the day, we also go get here to build and learn. So that's usually what Science with Shawn is about. Again, man, like the show, share the show. Let's see, we got a couple people in the building. Kofi had hopped in, but he hopped out, so he might be back. You never know. But do me a favor, share it. You know what I'm saying? I know. I think Garfield's still alive. He been live all morning. So I know a lot of people over there probably rocking out with whatever they got going on, whatever they disputing and challenging at this moment. But it's all good. For the people who like it, you know what I'm saying? Tune in, I ain't knocking nothing. Let's see what we got in the chat, man. Peace. Number one troll. Keish, peace. What up, Zane? Chavez was good, bruh. Okay, I see you. Shit, but I got my new Bluetooth headphones on. Also, y'all had bridges on fire. Maybe it's a collective. Maybe it was supposed to be a universal plot for all, you know what I'm saying? Retaliation for the Trump, you never know, man. You know what I'm saying? I ain't putting it into the air, nothing like that. I ain't putting it into the air. But yeah, man, like the show, share the show. I know we got a little small group of people right now, hopping in, hopping out. Hopefully everybody having a nice little morning this morning. Hold on, I'm still trying to share it a little bit because I want to actually deal with something in particular. You know what I'm saying? Something in particular. All right, so everybody has seen this. This was in the last video. Y'all remember this? Right? Y'all remember this, right? Here go the original post. All right, so look. Homeboy sent it to me, but here go the original post. If it let me get to it. Probably ain't gonna let me get to it. I really don't care. But let's take a look at the video. I know I ain't sharing. I'm just playing the video of the music. I'm finna share it. I was trying to time it up. So hold up. All right, here we go. Oops, I almost deleted it. Here we go. Here we go. Make it like we can't see it. Number one troll, boy. We know you like messing it. Here you go.
All right. Nurse number 3, please.
All right. So y'all seen that, right? Empty. Going is on. Nothing enough. Empty, right? New York come out. Now this hospital actually has caught hell behind this. Right? Texas hospital appears to give worker fake COVID-19 vaccine shot. All right. It says the Texas hospital is under fire after eagle-eyed viewers claim the COVID vaccine healthcare worker received on TV appeared to be fake. Camera crews were invited in the University Medical Center El Paso to capture 5 of its frontline workers to get coronavirus vaccine on Tuesday. Videos on social media showing paramedic Ricardo Martinez getting supposed to be a shot raised concern about the skeptical viewers. Now, clearly that syringe was empty and the plunger was already down. Where's the Band-Aid? Yeah, nice try. We are not food. Facebook user Barbara Siri wrote. Syringe is empty. The guy didn't push the syringe at all. Bad acting. Viewer Aaron Isaac Hernandez wrote. Just for show. I'm definitely not taking this now. Another Facebook user. After the press conference, Martinez said he was proud he got vaccinated. At least I feel like I could do my job with ease, he said. UMC admitted one of its workers didn't receive the entire vaccine and that a second shot was administered to erase any doubt. After a number of reports emerged on social media claiming one of the 5 nurses receiving a vaccination on Tuesday did not receive a full dose of the vaccine, we want to remove any doubt raised that he was not fully vaccinated and further strengthen confidence in the vaccine process, the hospital said in the statement. All right. Now, stuff got consequences. So here we go again. Leave all the ass, yo. Texas hospital said it gave nurse a second COVID vaccine shot after being accused of faking first injection by TV viewers who claimed the syringe plunger did not move. Let's see if it's saying the same thing. So it said a hospital in Texas has been accused of faking coronavirus vaccine for a frontline nurse after TV viewers claimed that the syringe didn't move. 5 medical workers at University Medical Center El Paso were filmed getting their shots. All right. But eagle-eyed viewers saying the same thing, spotted a problem with the vaccination on the second nurse. So they had no problem with the first nurse. They had a problem with the second nurse. Him. The syringe plunger had already been pushed down before the needle was inserted in the Ricardo Martinez's arm. Got a few in the question of vaccine at all. It was staged. All right. So they claiming the second person was staged. The not-for-profit hospital, which has 394 beds, denied the vaccine was fake or staged, but said they could be taking a closer look at the video as well as vaccinating the nurse at a second time. UMC healthcare worker Martinez said afterwards that he was honored and privileged to be one of the first ones to get the vaccine. He added, it feels like a little relief that we're finally going to get some help. We're going to get some vaccines. Hopefully it'll help because it's been a lot of work for everybody. All right, there they go. This is what they're talking about. Okay, they go to a group of people. They only had a problem with him. What they don't show you is the whole video. Now, I'm not going to show you the whole video because they adding strikes to stuff. But if you watch the whole video, the video was 17 minutes. And they call up each one of them to get the shot. All right. So UMC was one of several El Paso hospitals to start administering Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine, which began shipping across U.S. on Sunday. About 3 million doses were sent out from the plant in Michigan on Friday, ready to be administered from Monday onwards. In a report of their website regarding the footage of the syringe at UNC, KTSM9 News wrote, some eagle-eyed KTS9 News viewers wondered if the co-worker received the vaccine at all. They added that after they contacted the hospital spokesman, said all 5 vaccines seen on the camera were real, but that they would be taking a closer look at the video. All right. Now, in a statement to the hospital said, after numerous reports emerged on social media claiming one of the 5 nurses received a vaccination on Tuesday did not receive a full dose of the vaccine, we want to remove any doubt raised that he was not fully vaccinated and further strengthen confidence in the vaccine process. They added that the nurse was vaccinated a second time. UNC has confirmed with the U.S. Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, ACIP, that revaccinating the nurse will not cause adverse effects, they said. They will need to return after 3 weeks to receive a second dose. Hospital spokesman Ryan Malik called it the light at the end of the tunnel. We have all waited for another nurse. Ruel Garcia said it felt good and was almost like a sigh of relief. And then they go on to got all that, and they kill that right there. So let's see if I can get it pulled up where I can make it work. All right, so let's see. This on Facebook. So I shouldn't really get anything, any type of strike, but I'm gonna play it and let's see how it go. Hold on, let me make sure, because they don't look nothing like this. This is something else, a whole nother hospital. Where the algorithms at, man? Y'all know what I'm looking for. They listen to everything we talking about it, then don't never want to pull it up. What a 17-minute video at? Some kind of COVID-19 press release. Let's see if they're gonna have it in. Nah. No. Hold on, I think I got it in my phone. Let me transfer it. Give me a second, y'all. I know somebody just hopped on the panel, man. If y'all want to say something to the audience, you can go ahead and say something.
This coach popped on this, man. Jama and Boca, everybody that's out there looking in the chat, man. But I'm fall back. I'm just listening, man.
All right. Anybody else on up? Just you.
Yeah, just me, ain't nobody else on here.
All right. Okay. Cool. All right. Hold on, y'all. I think I almost got it. All I wanted is a 17-minute video. I'm gonna show y'all this other nurse getting it too. Come on, yo. Copy the clipboard. Paste. Let me see if I do this, if I can get the whole video. No, I don't want no hour video. All right, let me go to my notepad, my online notepad for links. You gotta use your tools, people. You gotta use your tools. All right, I ain't gonna play the sound. Show y'all this video, let y'all ride through it. So watch the video. So they go to conference. It's in the same facility. It's only 2 minutes. There go first nurse. Look, she said she was nervous. All right, there you go in. Bow. Look, University Medical Center of El Paso. University Medical Center of El Paso. Just so y'all know it ain't no flim-flam. So they really was administering the vaccine to these people. You know what I'm saying? They really was in, look. Hold on, let's see if we can catch him. We missed out here. So he already done got the shot. We missed his. Boom. Boom. So they really was. Look, we gonna see it again. A whole nother lady. Look. You know what I'm saying? So look, got a card, flexing the card. Same play. All right. So they really was administering the vaccine, y'all. With that last dude, you know, we just went over that. You know what I'm saying? They dealt with it like that. So out of 4 to 5 nurses that had fought with one of the nurses who they had an issue with, which is this guy right here. Why? We don't even know. But you know what I'm saying? Last word on the street is that, hey, he received a vaccine. He got his vaccine card. What we going to do, go in there and have him sit on the table and try to pick him apart to prove that he actually had a vaccine? But that's that on that. Let me stop just for a second. I want to say peace to Crump. What's up, views from West Africa, brother Mathis? What up, what up? Brother, yeah. Peace for that, bro. Yeah. Yep. They gave that boy 2 shots. That's a good question, Chav. He said it's a good question. Let me put that on there for the viewers, man. People who might watch this later, you know. How dumb would you be to fake a vaccine shot in a pandemic? That's real. Aronde was good, brother. To everybody else looking and watching, man, peace to y'all. So I just wanted to kind of cover that real quick, you know what I'm saying? Because there's so many conspiracies surrounding the release of the COVID-19 vaccine, and what's going on with people in the world. So I'm not trying to turn these episodes into dealing with conspiracies, but it just seems like that because every day you're being shared something new. The next one that you're going to see, and I'll tell you now, is one that shows a vape prescription. I mean, a vape prescription, a visor. You know what I'm saying? Like you attach it to your vape pen and you take it that way. Visor has not issued anything like that. That's pretty much was a humorous joke. The dude who created the meme specifically said, "Look, everybody, a solution to the problem." You know, he basically was saying for people who don't want to get the shot, you can vape it. And people lose their sense of humor and they start adding a conspiracy to it. So that, yeah, we ain't got to really deal with that. We really want to deal with the science. So again, I see we got a few more people in the building, man. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate it. Like the show. Go ahead.
I have a question, man. Or anybody maybe can answer this. Is how can we engage our people to be more scientific literate, or how can we?
You broke up, but to answer your question, to answer your question, we just got to be consistent. Not only do we have to be consistent, you breaking up.
You have testicles. I mean, all types of stuff, man.
Okay.
So
you broke up.
Oh, can you hear me now?
The whole time you were talking, you broke up. So go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, you good.
God dang.
Man, listen, if you ain't on your laptop, we ain't listening to you.
I'm on my laptop, man. I don't know, man. My internet been going up and down today for some reason. It's acting crazy. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. So you didn't hear nothing I asked. Well, the question was,
how can we make it entertaining? You said, how can we make it entertaining or engaging for our people to get involved in scientific literacy? And then we didn't hear anything after that.
Right. Yeah. Because I'm saying that to say that our people is basically saying or regurgitating some of the same stuff that they see on TikTok, the same stuff they see on some of these conspiracy theorists YouTube channels, these memes, especially these memes that's on Facebook. There's a lot of memes on Facebook, so a lot of our people is regurgitating this information and then passing this misinformation or misinformation or rhetoric down to other people, where people is don't even is against vaccines, but when you ask them what is a vaccine, what's in a vaccine, what is the latest data, can't nobody explain to me why vaccines is bad, what is the data or what is the current data, what's in the vaccine. Everybody just pro against it, but when you go to trying to explain to some of our people, especially if I say I'm pro-vaccine, I know people tend to look at me like I'm crazy. So I'm just saying, how can we make it appealing where our people can, go and look at the, go and read, man, and look at the data, research, you know what I'm saying, and look at some of these doctors that's actually in the field that's working on these vaccines.
Well, first, Black people are going to immediately dismiss any scientific talk because of the history of racism and, science being used against them. So I say that to say that, first of all, I think that's an excuse, a weak ass excuse. Here's why I call it a weak ass excuse. And it's simple. How do you know that bad science was used against you? It took good science to uncover it. In order for you to know that bad science or a certain type of science is against you, you have to know, because science requires you to know and then it requires you to do, right? So you have to know that bad science was used against you in order to do that. Now, to make it fun and exciting, people are going to have to be creative or come up with creative ways in order for people to actually get this type of information. Rather we crack jokes or be humorous or anything about it, it seems the only way that we actually can do it is if it's chaos, right? You just can't have an actual class because stuff like that is boring to Black people in some instances, not all, but in some instances, some folks. And then that requires a little level of discipline, and it requires a level of commitment to wanting to know more. So let's just say this: if they created a vaccine right now and it saved somebody Black family's life that caught a specific cancer, not the one that they got a vaccine for now. I'm talking about another specific cancer, and to save that person's life, that person is going to be an advocate for that because that saved a family member's life, and that family member no longer is facing death. But nobody else is going to pay attention to that person because they're going to think, man, y'all crazy, until it happens to somebody else. So it's going to take good science to dominate bad science, bad scientific experiences. Now, have we had any bad experiences in the scientific field or in the medical field in the last 20 years, 30 years? No. We haven't had bad scientific experiences. We haven't had a bad experience with science. I can't name a time. Even with the emergence of HIV/AIDS, right? When the emergence of that came about, they said, "Oh, they targeting Black people. Here's how they doing it." But it was all a conspiracy, right? They never mentioned the first person to come to America who had contracted HIV/AIDS, right? They never mentioned it that that person was a European. They never mentioned that. They never mentioned about Europeans contracting it, right? So this whole thing was built on that. Like, Black people believe too much, bro. You know what I mean? We believe too much. We want the easy way out. We don't want to know. We rather take the easy way out. It sound good to say. A lie's easier to sell than the truth. It's gonna always be like that. So no matter what we do, we just got to continue to use the good science to fight off the bad science, and demonstration beat conversation. So that's pretty much how we can answer. Now, we can bite size a lot of things, and that's why I kind of lead the beginning of these lessons with refuting a particular claim or something like that, is so people can engage in knowing, okay, all right, I see what this brother did and how he did it, and how he's reviewing the information, because people are not looking at all the data. They're only looking at pieces of the data, and then they make an informed decision based on a piece of the actual data. And that's incorrect and disingenuous. But I do want to get back to the mRNA vaccine real quick before we get further into the actual lesson today. And I'm going to see if this actually can help. Because look, this doctor did this on TikTok. Dr. Allison Rogers. Now watch what she say. The video is 1 minute and 1 second. No, I don't have TikTok. This was sent to me by Brother Black Panther. He felt that it would be of use, especially when trying to explain what an mRNA vaccine is, and COVID-19 entering the cell causing the infection. Watch. Oh, hold up, y'all can't see it. Let me see if I can make it play though. Might not be able to make it Joker play. Hold up.
Check out this amazing illustration of the COVID vaccine. In an actual COVID infection, the virus enters the cell through its spike protein. This is how infections happen. Now, the vaccine is mRNA, which are the instructions to build the spike protein, inside a lipid layer that enters the cell and releases the mRNA. Ribosomes inside the cell attach to the mRNA and start building the spike protein. The spike protein itself is not harmful. Those spike proteins leave the cells and start circulating. Our immune system thinks this is a COVID infection and recognizes the spike protein and starts creating antibodies against the spike protein. If you are then exposed to the actual virus, our immune system remembers those spike proteins and antibodies attached to the virus, making it impossible to enter our cells and create an infection. Isn't science amazing?
All right, so that's basically, you know what I'm saying? That's how she rocked out with that. And I feel like, you know, that was cool right there. You know what I'm saying? Like it was 1 minute, it's bite-sized, that's TikTok. You know, and that she go right there so people can look up on TikTok for more information about that. But, you know, Black people, just to elaborate a little bit further on what you said, Kofi, is that our people, I should say Black, our people have an issue. We rather regurgitate the white lie than regurgitate the white truth. You know what I mean? Because we have other people that are confusing us and leading us down a path. It's similar to the Northrop lady that, you know, on the last video that we talked about, where she was providing misinformation, and that misinformation led, you know, leading people to think a certain way. You know what I'm saying? She talked about the Gates Foundation trying to get microchips into people to monitor their daily activity, and the only way to get it in there is through the COVID-19 vaccine, and you know, some kind of way, some cryptocurrency was gonna come out of it, and you know what I'm saying? They gave us something that has to do with rhesus monkeys and the whole, you know, the whole conspiracy spiel, which was disingenuous. And
I just had that argument, bro. In the barber shop, bro. Arguing, the barbers in the barber shop was talking about the COVID, and they was talking about the vaccines, right? And I got in a full blown argument with one of the owners in the barber shop while I was getting a haircut about this conspiracy of the government is going to mandate everybody across the world to take these vaccine shots, and these vaccine shots, are they going to administer the chips where they're able to keep up with your location, and a whole bunch of craziness that they were talking about. So I can actually validate that that conspiracy talk, because I actually experienced it myself the other week in the barber shop. You know, I ain't never, that was my first time hearing of they finna make it mandated where they was finna start injecting these chips through these vaccines into people across the world. I think they mentioned the mark 666. This was the mark of the beast. Yeah, man, it was just so much craziness, man. But I'm like, wow. But our people, like you said, man, is we rather, especially here where I'm at. I'm speaking for where I'm at in Mississippi, man. We the Bible Belt, so everything is not based off of knowing. It's based off blind faith and off of belief. So our people just believe anything, man. And like you say, man, they rather regurgitate a lie than rather regurgitate the truth. But yeah, I experienced that.
yeah, well, the last video, you just shoot on that. It's in the very first 30 minutes of the video. You shoot them that. We running right all the way down. You know what I'm saying? And when they talk about the mark of the beast, they get them numbers down. So, you know, we did the mark of the beast rebuttal to that anyway, too. So some of that information to answer all that they got going on right then and there. Like, what we do is, man, just put, you know, we just ask them the question. They in the barbershop, you having a barbershop conversation, tell them to demonstrate it. Just tell them, so what's up? We ain't got to waste our breath. So what's up, brother, and I believe you.
Right. And that's exactly what I did. But you know, them, you know, like I said, our people, man, they don't believe in no sources. They just gonna continue to want to argue with you, just to be arguing with you. So I, you know, my thing is, I was just trying to get them to show me some type of data, show me some type of proof, some source.
What that is, man.
Yeah.
What you ask to somebody who cut hair for a living? They're not a scientist. They're not a virus. So what immunologists or virologists sanction that? You know what I mean? But I'm gonna get into the little lesson, man. Again, man, like the show, share the show. We 37 minutes in. Got Brother Kofi in the building. Satep dipped out. He probably be right back. I want to open up to a scientific conversation, and let's see if we can get some learning going. And then we're gonna break it down. We ain't gonna go all the way through it. We're just gonna break it down slow, and we're gonna deal with it. Now, remember, y'all know me. All the sources you see on my screen, all these tabs are in the description. The link to the merch store in the description. The link to the books in the description. We don't do fundraisers or anything like that. We provide a product and a service to our people. Support us, man. We do this every day. But let's get into TWIV. Okay, all right. I got my mark. See, I got my timestamp. I'm on my ish. And you know, Fair Use Act. You know, this educational purposes, and we're gonna see what our geeks are talking about this week.
I want to just remind everyone that the Aaron Diamond AIDS Research Center at Columbia University Irving Medical Center, they're still looking for an assistant manager to help run the operations of the BSL-3 facility. And that's a containment lab where you work on virus. Go back and take some highlight clips from previous TWIVs of this year, which would be fun to do.
Oh, yeah, like you got all kinds of time to do that, right?
Yes. Yeah, that would be the kind of thing I do on Christmas Day. I disappear in the basement. My family's like, "Hey, Dad, what are you doing?" I wouldn't do that, no. But I would like to do it because we've had, since we started doing video, we've had some interesting episodes. But, you know, I'd love to play that first one in January where you say, "Hey, there's this virus in China. What's going on here?" Might be interesting to do that. But yeah, it will take time to go through them all because they're all archived on drives stored away. And I have to pull them out, uncompress, you know, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of a bit of work.
You can't just get them from the internet like the rest of us? They wouldn't be high enough quality.
Not to edit them, no. Right.
Yeah, right.
I mean, nobody would probably notice if I did that, but I would. It's easier. Yeah, I could do that. I could just download them all and edit them off the interwebs. Yeah, I guess so. I might do it at some point. It's not going to happen before the end of the year, though. All right, so today we have two things, actually three things to talk about. One is the UK variant, and then I want to briefly talk about a gene therapy thing that came up just this morning. We don't have to go into it in too depth, but just so we do something other than SARS-CoV-2, and then we'll do email. And so last time, which was Friday, we talked a bit about this variant of SARS-CoV-2 that has arisen in the UK, and it's making some, shall I say, some discussion in the world.
That's fair.
And so over the weekend, a document was released from a committee that I'd never heard of, or an advisory group, I guess it is. And it is called the New and Emerging Respiratory Virus Threats Advisory Group. Had anyone heard of that before?
It's news to me.
I had not.
But I am not omniscient. It'll come as a surprise, but I know, but.
Yeah, so this document, somebody sent it to me. People send TWIV a lot of stuff, which is great. And so this was sent to me, I think, Sunday. Yeah.
Well, I originally saw it from Mike Skinner. I've had
like Monday,
a fair amount of correspondence with Mike, and he's been generous in informing me as to what's going on.
Right. I
Yes,
think
it is available on Twitter for people who were wondering.
Oh, yeah,
I had seen it.
Yeah, you can find it. Anyway, so we got this, and we didn't discuss it on Friday. So it's basically a meeting where they have a number of members, and all the members are listed. And actually, you can find the same members on another website, which, there's a website for NervTag, and you can find all the members and what they do. Some of them are virologists, some of them are epidemiologists, some of them are immunologists.
And it could be that the reason we haven't heard about this is it's a UK group, and we're, across an ocean from there.
And I just recognize Wendy Barclay, who is an influenza virologist. We've had her on TWIV before, and we've talked about her work on influenza virus, and then there are others. Anyway, the meeting was on December 18th, and it's called NervTag Meeting on SARS-CoV-2 Variant Under Investigation. So this virus, it was originally called VUI, Variant Under Investigation, 202.01.12/01. And those numbers we actually went over last time. They mean things. And I'm glad they call it a variant under investigation. Right. And, all the people that ask you, is it a strain? Well, this committee, they call it a variant. So that's cool. And they had reviewed some data and summarized them. And so they reviewed 3 different documents. This Public Health England document, new evidence on this VUI. And we have a newer Public Health England document we'll go over in a moment. Cycle threshold monitoring data from labs, including Oxford, that are monitoring diagnostic test results. And then a paper called Early Analysis of a Potential Link Between Viral Load and the N501Y mutation in the SARS-CoV-2 spike, which I would say the N501 amino acid change in the SARS-CoV-2 spike. And then they said 4 analytic approaches were reviewed regarding the transmissibility of the virus. And the first bullet point is the growth rate from genomic data, which suggests a growth rate of the variant that is 71% higher than other variants. And these are, as far as I understand, sequence reads, which are used to infer this from patients, right? And then studies of correlation between R values and detection of the variant, which suggests an increase in the R value, the reproductive value, between 0.39 to 0.93, which would mean more transmission. And then cycle threshold values, which would suggest a decrease of a cycle threshold of around 2, right? So the lower the cycle threshold, the more genomic copies, RNA copies.
And I assume that's looking at the basically the raw data from a given sample. Yeah. And asking for that sample, what was the cycle threshold?
It is. And one other thing that I've found sort of interesting as I've read about this is it seems as though this particular variant has 23 changes, some in spike, some in other parts of the genome.
Yeah.
And one of those changes is a deletion, a short deletion in spike. I believe it's 6970. And as a result, the spike PCR primers no longer work that are used for detection. And so one of the ways that they've been monitoring this is looking at people who are testing positive by all of the other primer sets, but who are negative by spike. They've been calling it the spike dropout. So some of these data are genomics data, and some of these data are sort of diagnostic qPCR data from patients.
And then the 4th bullet point is the viral load inferred from genome reads. So they're apparently doing a lot of genome sequencing in the UK, more than we're doing here in the US. And they can quantify the number of RNA copies that they see in a specimen, right? And they're using that to infer viral load. And from all of this, they conclude, in summary, we have moderate confidence that this variant demonstrates a substantial increase in transmissibility compared to other variants. And they suggest more experiments that need to be done to address this. All right. And so there, my take on this is that, it's all based on genomic data, PCRs and sequence reads. And that can be misleading, I think, because I can imagine changes, and there are a lot of changes, as Rianne said, can affect copy number of particular mRNAs and disperse them. So that's why I always say I'd like to see infectivity data from patients, but we never get that, unfortunately. In the end, the real key is if you think it's increased transmission, then you have to have an idea of how that might happen. And there's more than one way that a virus could become more transmissible. And my feeling is you should test it. Although one might argue in the long run, what's the difference? Because we still should do the same non-pharmaceutical interventions, right? That we have been doing. Yeah, well,
that's the bottom line, is that at the current time, dealing with no matter what this is, we deal with it the same way. I think right now.
Yeah, okay. What else can you do? You deal with it the same way, and you vaccinate people. We have vaccines now, and that's the way to go forward. And a lot of people have been worried that this means it'll go through their face mask or go across the room or something like that. People get scared because they don't know how to interpret this, but I think all the interventions we're doing are sufficient to deal with it.
So we've had a lot of discussion. Sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You finish up.
We've had a lot of discussion in the background about this issue of transmission, and it has spawned an interest in me, and I would like to hear an epidemiologist talk about transmission, okay? Because I can't do it. All right. Or at least I can't do it from an epidemiological perspective. But what does come to mind, what I've been thinking about this morning, is that we use R values all the time. Okay. If you look it up on Wikipedia, okay, it says that R value is a measure of spread, and those measures can come, in fact, from genomic data and come from epidemiologic data. Okay. So I'd like to hear an epidemiologist sometime talk about this, what their perspective is.
Yeah, because we're not. I agree.
Yeah, I think that I've heard people talk about this resulting in change in transmission, and I feel like there's this nebulous picture that some people have of what exactly it could be changing or what is going on. And you can imagine lots of things potentially happening in terms of changes in viral load, or changes in which part of the nose a virus is replicating in, or changes in the number of days one is asymptomatic and potentially spreading, or all sorts of things. And that sort of thing we can't necessarily assess from these data. But I think that people who know a whole lot more about genomics than I do, which doesn't take much, have been somewhat intrigued by this and feel like there is reason for more investigation. And I am always good with more data and more investigation.
Kathy, you're going to say something.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that Vincent was going through this document from NervTag, a brief summary of their opinion. And so partway through is where it says, in summary, NervTag has moderate confidence that this variant demonstrates a substantial increase in transmissibility. So they have moderate confidence. And then they go on and talk about the things that they don't have enough data about to draw conclusions on. Any kind of underlying mechanism, the age distribution of cases, the disease severity, the geographic extent was discussed to some extent, and they endorsed actions proposed by Public Health England and have some additional things. So they are all about getting additional data, which is where I think we come down also. I have read a lot of things in the popular press and on the interwebs and so forth. And one thing that comes clear to me is what we were just saying about this being something that's perhaps viewed differently by virologists and epidemiologists. And I am fully willing to say that the kind of lineage expansion and phylogenetic trees that people are looking at could point to increased transmissibility. It's not the kind of data that I'm used to evaluating. And there are a couple things, I think we'll get to virological.org, but there's a figure 2 where they show this cluster of cases from Southeast England and sort of the rest of their samples. And they're like 2 disparate graphs because they do their regression analysis on the separate piece of data. And I found that pretty compelling. Couldn't quite tell you how they got to that figure, but the figure itself looked convincing to me. And so, I think, we could go back to the D614G mutation that was previously thought to perhaps lead to increased transmissibility. And there were a lot of discussions about founder effects, and that was sort of early on. And so I had this feeling that, maybe founder effects were a factor for D614G. And then subsequently, there was lots of tissue culture work and surrogate viruses and other things that weren't as convincing as we would have wanted. And we still don't have the human data, but there is some data now from animals about its transmissibility. And it looks like there is increased transmissibility for that D614G. Some of the things that I've seen in the last 24 hours about this new variant with all its different mutations, I've seen things about, for instance, neutralization for just with respect to one particular amino acid, the 501. And what I'd really like to see is a comparison of, maybe the original Washington 1 isolate, WA1, I think that's what it stands for, and this thing with all its 23 mutations and see.
All right. If you're unable to follow the discussion, they are specifically speaking about the mutations and how they are tracing, tracking, and acknowledging the fact of how they're getting this data. And then they're expanding on the studies of these mutations. Now, people are like, mutating? What are you talking about? Viruses mutate. They adapt, right? They go from host to host. And it's like they're learning. Yeah, scary, huh? A virus that learns how to adapt and adjust due to climate, due to the environment, right? And temperature, mainly temperature, environment, whatever, right? So let's say the temperature's cold, temperature's warm, it's adjusting. This new variant can be I don't know much, but while they're still investigating it, could be an adjustment made due to the weather and not necessarily the host. But these are things that we have to kind of actually get into. So I want to skip ahead because I don't want to bore y'all to death. But, they talked about the nerve tag pretty much. And then they get into the preliminary UK variant. So I want to get back to that. And let me see if I can timestamp it.
In the upper tract. I think that's what you need to do to figure it out. Everything else is indirect.
Well, that's one of the problems in the communication, because in this document, they don't talk about any of that stuff. I have to assume that the people who are doing the analysis, are taking into account.
I mean, if you're doing the NPIs, you don't have to change anything. Now, if he thought maybe this is an excuse to get people to pay attention, that's a different story. And evidence for that, and we'll go through a little bit of that in a bit. But I just, on two levels, I think this has been problematic. First, I don't think the claims, the 71% are warranted of increased transmission. And secondly, that so does it matter in the end, right? I'm not sure it does. But yes, it's a communication issue. I agree. And I always take the opposite view, which is I have to try and temper what the press is doing. And, you know, I talked to a lot of reporters yesterday about this, and I'm trying to say, look, you have to make sure the data support what you're saying. And so far, and I think it do not. And other people can have different views. That's fine. But we all have to talk. And, you know, I agree that we need to do more. I decided the other day that, in fact, given in particular the number of mutations, that this was an encrypted message from Mother Nature telling us to get our act together. You know, because there's all this panic, and then people are saying, "Oh, don't travel, don't." Duh. Yeah, you're not supposed to travel.
What are you doing traveling to start with?
Yeah. People say, "Oh, it's ruining my Christmas." Really? Just this one is ruining, or was it the whole pandemic?
Yeah.
I just, this idea of the genomic era, right? I was talking to some people. Does this happen in HIV? I said to some people, they said, no, that was the 80s. We didn't have much genomics back then. You know, the virus spread and there was none of this. And I love my favorite story, and sorry if you've heard this before, you know, polio virus, paralytic polio from thousands of years ago to about 1900, there was a case here, there was a case there, right? We call that endemic poliomyelitis. Then all of a sudden around 1900s, early 1900s, it became epidemic. You started having these outbreaks, right? And this is 1900. Nobody has sequencing. Nobody really understands what the virus is to begin with. And they do some, what Michael Schmidt would call shoe leather epidemiology. And they figure out, well, what happened around 1900, sanitation improved so that kids weren't being infected in their first month of life. And when you get the virus in your first month, your mother's antibodies that you've got from her protect you. So now we delay infection, and now we have groups of kids who don't have maternal antibodies anymore. And boom, outbreaks of polio. Perfect, right? Beautiful, makes sense of public health and epidemiology. And I always say if we had genome sequencing, they would immediately blame it on the mutation. They would find some changes that occurred as the virus went through the population. This is making it epidemic. So that's all I'm asking, is just to look further than what the bases are telling you, because it may not be the whole story. Although, you know, I mean, look, I was one of the first people to sequence a virus genome, okay? I get it. I get why it's cool, but it doesn't answer everything every time. And it's just what I want people to do, is to think about it and look at it.
All right, so you heard. You heard that he was one of the first people to sequence the virus's genome. This is the evolutionary advancement in technology, which allows us to be able to, or allows scientists and to create mRNA vaccines because of people like Vincent. So why am I having him on the screen versus other people is because he's an expert on the said subject. And yeah, I'm appealing to correct methodology. I am appealing to a credible source. I am appealing to the truth here. He's the truth. When it comes to virology, he's the truth. He just told you he was one of the first people to map the genome. He didn't say the first, he said one of the first. So his credentials, you know, I'm not appealing to his credentials or anything like that. He's the top dog. I'm not going to put somebody like a Curtis Cost or a OBGYN doctor in your face and let them try to talk to you about viruses and virology. It's not their field of study. It's not their field of study. They don't understand these things. And that's a bigger issue in our community, is because of who we're getting information from. But did you not hear him when he said what he said about how you're getting these antibodies from your mother coming out of the womb? You're getting these antibodies from your mother for a certain period of time. And then boom, after that, you're exposed to the world. Boom, here we go, new viruses. So everything that we talked, that has been spoken of in this first, half an hour of this particular build, are things that actually Unc has been right about. Why study evolution? Because it brings us right back to bacteria. It brings us right back to viruses. It brings us right back to how things adapt, how things mutate over a course of time, relativity and all of that stuff. It brings us right back to the science. It's just a known fact. So no, I don't expect, us to get thousands of views on the videos or hundreds. I appreciate the people who actually tune in and rewatch the videos and things of that nature. But what I'm trying to do here is expose people to actual credible information, because it is vital. All right, so let's see where they go from here for a second, and then I'm gonna get into some of these other articles that they actually build on as well.
In a broader context. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Mhm.
When you guys are quiet, I get suspicious because
We're thinking.
that's why I always ask you. Okay, is that good? All right. Then there are two other things we can. So first of all, we'll put a link to NerveTag, the website, so you can find. Oh, this is where the biographies of everyone are, and their interests and so forth. So that's quite nice. We'll put a link to that so you can see that. And then there are two documents. One is from Virological. And we have talked about virological documents before. This is a website run, I think, by Andrew Rambeau, which I don't remember the context of SARS-CoV-2. I think it was having to do with the origin of the virus. Originally, he had written some interesting articles. So now there's an article, Preliminary Genomic Characterization of this virus. And the authors of this are also on the NerveTag document. That makes me nervous when I say NerveTag. NerveTag. And then there is another document from Public Health England, which actually has a lot of the same information. I read both of them, and I said these are similar, but I just want to go through the PHE one. I don't know why, but you guys can jump in and tell me other things. So the PHE document is a nice history of what's going on here. When it was first picked up, this was December 8th, not too long ago, in Kent. They started to pick up this unusual variant, okay? And then it was called a VOC originally, variant of concern, which was then...
I think it's the other way around, isn't it?
I'm sorry, variant under investigation. Yeah, VUI. Right. And then it was changed to a variant of concern, of VOC. Later, after they got the data that we've just told you about, they got concerned about it. And they go through the PCR test, which Brianne has told you, is this. They use spike primers, and this one, because of the deletion mutation in the genome, the PCR doesn't work. So it's a negative S gene target. So they say we use the frequency of S gene target negatives among PCR positives as a proxy for frequency of this variant. And they mention that the further back in time you go, the less valuable that is, because there are other variants that also test negative on the spike. And then they go through this calculation, which Rich has already mentioned, using PCR, which they say yields a measure of the transmission fitness relative to pre-existing strains. And that's one of the bits of data they use to say there is an increase in transmission fitness, and then how they use this to find this higher reproduction number.
They call it estimated epidemic growth rates.
Yeah.
Okay. And in fact, there's a disconnect for me between this. This is the calculation that I quoted. And then in another document, they talk about 71% increase. Okay. I'm putting those two together. They don't say in this document that that's the calculation they used to come to 71%. I'm making that assumption because it's the best I can do.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Then they have a section on genomic characteristics, as we mentioned, 23 mutations, 13 non-synonymous, which means they cause an amino acid change, 4 deletions, and 6 synonymous mutations. And there are quite a few in the spike, but there are also quite a few in ORF1AB, which haven't gotten much attention. Poor RNA polymerase, just ignored. Spike gets all the attention, but we don't know what these do. And there's also one in the M gene. But changes in the polymerase can affect RNA levels. And so I have no problem saying, maybe these changes are making more RNA, and that's why the PCR is different, right? So I think you need to sort all that out and be careful. So there's a nice table which shows you all these changes, ORF1AB spike. The other change is in ORF8. And one of them makes a stop code on which truncates the protein. ORF8 is protein encoded in the right-hand part of the genome, which we've talked about before. We actually talked about it way back at the beginning of this year, because I had heard Christian Drosten the previous year at a meeting in Rotterdam talk about an ORF8 deletion in SARS, the first SARS in 2003. Very interesting. It emerged about halfway through the outbreak. Remember, it was only 8,000 people or so, smaller, much smaller. And then for the rest of the outbreak, all the isolates from everyone had an ORF8 deletion. And Drosten's idea was that this actually made the virus less pathogenic and consequently more transmissible. So that's very interesting. Here we go. If it's less pathogenic, you're more likely to be walking around and transmitting. So it's not a direct effect on virus production in transmission, right? It's an indirect effect. So the point is that transmission can be affected in different ways. Of course, that was a hypothesis, hard to prove, but these ORF8 deletions have arisen in the SARS-CoV-2 outbreak, one originally in Singapore and subsequently other countries. We talked about a Lancet paper not too long ago where clinical presentation in people with the ORF8 deletion seems to be milder than in people with an ORF8 intact. Again, that needs to be further explored, but this isn't getting any attention whatsoever. It's not spike. Anything but spike doesn't seem to get much attention. I think that's a very interesting mutation.
I think all of this is incredibly important because there are data out there on some of these mutations individually, like this ORF8 mutation, like N501Y in spike. And I know that was one thing that was sort of confusing to me when I started reading a bit about this, is that there also was some discussion in the media of an N501Y containing variant being found in South Africa and discussion of what that meant. And that was sort of brought into some of the media discussions on the first day of this weekend. But we haven't seen these 23 mutations together. We know a little bit about one or another in isolation, but one of the things that will be of interest is actually looking at all of these mutations together and how they may work.
There are several in the spike, and this N501Y, asparagine 501 to tyrosine, has gotten some attention, and I want to come back to that in a moment.
All right, so I'm gonna stop right there on the bill. Like I said, I always leave y'all with the links for all the information to continue the conversation. They talked about this. They talked about this. They haven't got to the WHO, but they are regarding information that's buried inside of the WHO and here. Now they also get into the adaptation, and they get into some little bonus information regarding the liver tumor and the virus and all of that stuff. So these are renowned conversations, but I did want to get to something specifically that's 12 minutes. I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to get into a little bit more information before I close out, because I don't want to hold everybody up. I know it's the holiday and y'all got stuff to do.
Let's start with some good news, shall we?
Apparently, the White House announcing a deal to secure millions more doses of that Pfizer vaccine.
Millions more doses. This morning, the Trump administration agreed to buy an additional 100 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, doubling the government's supply from the pharmaceutical company Pfizer. Soon after, Secretary of Health and Human Services Alex Azar released a statement. He said the U.S. will now have enough supply to vaccinate every American who wants it by June 2021. Now, there are questions here, because as things stand now, even with this latest deal and even counting the Moderna vaccine, so far the US government has only contracted enough to immunize 200 million people. Then there's the fact that this past week, many states did not get the vaccine supply they expected.
At the end of the day, the number of doses available to us to allocate ended up being lower.
U.S. Army General Gus Perna, Chief Operating Officer of Operation Warp Speed, that was him offering an apology last week. He oversees the vaccine distribution effort. More than a dozen states said their Pfizer allocations were cut, some by as much as 40% of what they were expecting.
And I want to take personal responsibility for the miscommunication.
Consider this. It's been more than a week since the U.S. administered its very first coronavirus vaccine. Now comes the hard work of making sure vaccines reach every corner of the country. From NPR, I'm Mary Louise Kelly. It's Wednesday, December 23rd.
I'm Guy Raz, and on NPR's How I Built This, how Tim...
All right, hold on. Let's skip this.
Before we go on, let's keep something in mind. We are talking about the rollout of a vaccine for a disease that none of us had heard of a year ago. The timeline is extraordinary. So naturally, there were going to be a few bumps in the road.
We had a little hiccup in that when it was being delivered to one of our pharmacies, there wasn't somebody there to receive it when FedEx, I think it went to deliver it.
That is Dr. Jose Romero. He's the Secretary of Health for Arkansas. He also chairs the committee that advises the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on who gets vaccines first.
But the vaccine was not left at the doorstep, so no harm done. But we learned from that. We need to let people know when the vaccine is coming, and we're putting measures in place to not let that happen again.
Overall, though, Romero says the rollout in his state is going surprisingly well.
To date, we have administered 12,762 doses. We have distribution now to 18 of our major hospitals, including the health department. Now it's 19. That was for the Pfizer vaccine. We now have vaccine being delivered to our nursing homes, and that's the Moderna vaccine.
So far, Romero says Arkansas has not seen the shortages other states are dealing with, and they've had enough ultra-cold storage to ensure the vaccines are kept at the right temperature.
Our initial rollout of the vaccine was to centers that had the capability of ultra-cold storage. And the distribution of the vaccine to the pharmacies, which we are using to reach our smaller rural hospitals, also have that capacity. So, knock on wood, at this point, we have not had a problem with that.
Now it's a question of scaling up. So far, as you heard, Arkansas has administered more than 12,000 shots. They're going to need to do that many times over to get everyone in the state vaccinated.
This is just the beginning. So we need to see if we can keep this up, this pace, if all these hospitals and the personnel are going to accept it. When we have more information in a week or beginning of next week of what the uptake is, that will give me a better idea of how well this vaccine is being accepted.
When are you getting the vaccine?
I am not in the first year. I will take that vaccine when the time comes. If I need to take this in order to boost confidence, I will certainly roll my sleeve up. I will be the first to accept this vaccine if it's important for me to do so for public confidence, but I will not jump somebody else's place in line.
Dr. Jose Romero. Arkansas is, of course, just one state out of 50, and it has not been as smooth everywhere. But still, this vaccine has been a game changer for the people caring for patients since the early days of the pandemic. Reporter Will Stone has been following the vaccine rollout in Seattle, where their first week was a mix of successes and stumbles.
So much had to happen to get this shot into the left arm of Nurse Rebecca Engberg.
1, 2, 3.
Awesome.
All right, you are all set.
Do you take this?
Yep, I'll take that one.
But for all it took, the vaccine clinic at Seattle Children's Hospital feels pretty normal. After her shot, Engberg waits to make sure there are no unexpected side effects.
I physically feel fine. I'm emotionally pretty excited about it.
Engberg has cared for COVID patients in the ICU.
It's been a long year already. It's scary working with these patients, and it's something different. So anything that gives you a little bit more protection makes you feel a little bit better.
She didn't have any real hesitation about getting the vaccine. Evan Mew, a respiratory therapist at Seattle Children's, also just got his shot.
I was a little concerned about how fast this went through. I have not really been one to trust this government this past years.
But ultimately, Mew decided the benefits outweighed the risks. Dr. Daniel Zaire with Seattle Children's says this very first phase with the Pfizer vaccine was hard to orchestrate.
Probably the biggest challenge is planning when you don't have information and details.
Zaire says they could be vaccinating 2 to 3 times as many people.
We have the freezer space, we have the staff, we have the clinic space, and we have the will to do it.
But the vaccine is not coming as fast as some states would like. Washington and others are getting about 40% fewer doses than they initially expected. Dr. Jeff Duchin with Public Health Seattle-King County says the federal government hasn't invested enough in the vaccine rollout, and delays and hiccups should be expected.
So I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed it happened so quickly, that we're already seeing challenges with respect to allocation.
There's also pushback at some hospitals over who gets it first. Medical residents at Stanford protested after employees who aren't at the bedside got the shot before them. Ashley Bauer says there was a glitch at her hospital in Washington state where nurses like her were initially passed over as administrative staff got shots.
They don't even come to the COVID floors and they're taking the vaccine before like their actual frontline staff that's doing the work.
And while the vaccine is a big comfort, Seattle nurse Corrine Ingram says it doesn't change the nature of her work on COVID.
Listening to people say goodbye to their loved ones via FaceTime. I've been doing that for a year and I still cry every time. But also like getting to see people who get out of the ICU. It's just a crazy world of extremes.
And that won't change nearly soon enough, even as the country enters this new, promising chapter of the pandemic.
Will Stone reporting.
All right, I'm gonna drop that one right there, and I'm gonna transition in. Sister Kissel, it's unethical for any of them to jump the line. They already have it. They got first responders. They have, and then they have people over a certain age limit. Now you have to remember, they only have so many doses of this vaccine that is ready for it to be administered to these people. And it requires 2 doses. It requires 2 doses, and the second dose is 3 weeks after the first dose. So if they just sent out 40 million vaccines, 20 million people are already are in line to get both doses. So that means there's 280 million people or plus that won't have the vaccine. Like the article that we were looking at a second ago talked about trying to secure another 100 million doses of the vaccine. You got to cut that in half. That's going to be 50 million people. So you got people in nursing homes. You have the elderly, right? You have people who are high susceptibility of potential death from this particular virus that come before people like me, people like you, people like these rich people that's trying to pay $25,000 to jump the line. So when you hear someone that is just a doctor, not an immunologist or anything like that, just a doctor in another field, or someone that works for a particular company, anything like that, say, I'm not going to jump the line to go ahead and get my vaccine. That's just a fact. Because some of us, guess what we got to do? We ain't in line to get the vaccine like people think. Oh, we supposed to get the vaccine next week after next month. No. I put the vaccine tracker up 2 shows ago with a link in the description that shows you that it's going to be millions of people before they even get to you. Hundreds of millions of people before they even get to you. And they ain't even got, they don't have 400 million vaccines ready for just the United States. This vaccine is for the world, not just us. So we need to take a step all the way back. This vaccine is supposed to go around the world. Pfizer and Moderna around the world. That's a lot of people ahead of us. We're talking about a planet, 7 billion people. Yeah, I mean, we want these people to say, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get mine now. No, what about the 68-year-old black woman that actually need the vaccine? What about the 75-year-old black woman that actually need the vaccine? They like all of a sudden don't matter no more than this person's because they're younger and they need to get it right now. If they ain't a first responder, they ain't no sense in them trying to get it right now. They done already gave it to Congress. You know what I'm saying? The vice president took his live on the air. We all know Trump ain't trying to do nothing on TV because he hadn't. Right? You got people doing everything that they need to do. But let me transition into something a little bit more specific. I don't want to get lost in the sauce.
Hey, Sean, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. You was
I don't know what's going on. I got a new computer, man. But hey, I want to ask you about this though.
Yeah,
Because you was talking about how the vaccine is for the world. That's a good point that you brought up. So what about those third world countries? Where they at on the list?
They have plans in play trying to get them vaccinated. I don't know where they are on the list, but I know they are on the hearts and mind of people because that was the whole point about trying to make the vaccine affordable. And that's why they got so many different companies trying to work toward making it affordable and the temperatures reliable so that they can do that. That's also why they got other tests running where there's not like the actual vaccine like what you see Dr. Hildred about to receive.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be one of those other working vaccines that's coming down the line because they got tons of vaccines that are all that are not all going to be mRNA vaccines. They're going to have some that may be conventional. They'll be small, but they'll be conventional. And then there'll be some that'll, they might not have a 90-some% efficacy. It may be some with 60-70% efficacy. And on those low end, those third world countries may be up in line for that because it may be more affordable for them to be able to administer the vaccines for that. But then you have people like Bill Gates who work on these commonalities to try to resolve issues on world issues, right? He's big on world issues. So, they have foundations set up to where they actually can provide safety measures for them.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious because like you said, Trump, I think I was playing it here earlier. It said Trump just bought a nice amount of them for the U.S., but I'm like, shit. What about them little countries in South America, even Gambia? Think about the brothers in Senegambia, like,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, think about over there. So, they ain't got nobody over there that's gonna purchase that much. So, yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. Good question. But what I want to do is I want to play this. I want to try to play it without striking us up. So I'm putting Dr. Hildred on the screen, and then I'm gonna play two parts of it. Well, I'm gonna play this part of the news article. All right, let me see if I can get into it.
This is not a TV.
Man, my bad. You know how it go, man. You be trying to mute. Come on, yo. I want y'all to really hear him, man. But they took this video away because of the resources on it. I don't think that joker gonna play now. Chrome ain't playing. Too many ads, yo. I'm gonna try to see if I can get it back after the ad. All right, here we go.
Hildreth joining a growing list of medical professionals getting one of the new COVID-19 vaccines. Dr. Hildreth and several of his co-workers at Meharry got the Moderna vaccine today as a way to reassure the public of the safety and effectiveness of this new shot. Dr. Hildreth says he is not skeptical of the time frame the vaccine got developed, which he was partially responsible for approving because of the technology available to the scientists.
The only way we're going to put the pandemic behind us is for at least 70 or 80% of us to get vaccinated. And the vaccines are safe and effective. We have to do our part by getting vaccinated to protect ourselves and our communities.
State Health Commissioner Lisa Piercy says that Meharry Medical College was not included in the first round of vaccinations being distributed because she says its staff simply was not large enough to have used an entire case. The Metro Health Department administered its first COVID-19 vaccine today. The department round of the Lisa Pierce frame. The vaccine got developed, which he was partially responsible for approving because of the technology available to the scientists.
Y'all heard what he said, right? We all know, if you know anything about Dr. Hildreth, he was a part of the FDA committee that approved the vaccine. Now, you also heard that the channel Fox News dudes say that he's receiving the Moderna vaccine, not the Pfizer vaccine. He's receiving the Moderna vaccine, all right? So we know that there was a bunch of doctors who got the Pfizer vaccine, but, you know, Dr. Hildreth, he got the Moderna vaccine. So, you know, hey, there we go. You know, and I said that.
What that mean, though?
Hey, what that mean to me though is that it really don't really have any meaning, to be honest. You know,
I don't know. I'm asking.
Yeah. It's just a real competition between, you know, the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine. It's a conversation. Okay. It's a conversation that me, Unc, and Corey kind of had like little giggles about. You know what I mean? Just, you know, this goes back to how we interpret the data. So when we
yeah, because I'm lost too. So is it two different companies that are administering two different tests? Is it two different was it two different vaccines created in two different places or two different companies? I'm lost when you
more than two.
Okay.
It's more than two companies.
Yeah, because Johnson & Johnson got a contract too.
Yeah, they coming out in January. So Pfizer and Moderna were the first two. Pfizer was first. Pfizer was a week before Moderna. Pfizer's phase 3 trial ended before Moderna's phase 3 trial. So we got the data on that. Like I got shows at the beginning, like last week. If you go back last week and look at the last week's shows, I got the actual documents from the reports, which would be the primary sources, the primary resource for the FDA approvals on this based on the data from Pfizer.
Yeah, I downloaded.
So Moderna released theirs last week. You know what I mean? And then they shipped out their first documents of Moderna last week. Dr. Hildreth just could have you know what I'm saying, took the Moderna because that's the first one that they received was the Moderna and not the Pfizer. Because remember earlier they had already issued out the first wave of Pfizer out to everybody that was getting some. Moderna just got approved and Moderna sent. So what they caught was the second wave. And both of them got high efficacy rates. So it really is really tit for tat. So it's just a little joke. But Corey got stock in Pfizer. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much why he said he gonna get that Pfizer because he got it in that. You know what I mean? He got to determine it. But your doctor will give you whichever one that they actually have access to at this particular time. If you're in line to get it, if you're one of those early ons, which you're not, you're gonna be way in the summertime, which is good for us because we'll have more data and we'll continue to have more data and learn from the data, and we'll get to look at more if there's any more adverse effects and things of that nature that are coming forward right now. They're working on the allergic reactions. Plus, we got Brother Malcolm in the building too, who's who will be in line to get his vaccine, and he's training right now to administer the mRNA vaccine for people. So that's big. That's big right there. And that's another resource that we actually got on that. So it ain't no difference between the two, man. Both of them showing high efficacy rates. There's no real adverse effects that are issues regarding the vaccines. Things that would be similar to any other vaccine that exists right now that's out there. But I did want to show Dr. Hill why he got his vaccine right there. You know what I'm saying? He a man of the people, and this I am trusting his and his understanding and his methodology. And the doctor is well studied on the subject matter. If you're gonna deal with an expert, you deal with an expert on the subject matter. And right now he the top. Not only is he the top in this field, but he also got work on AIDS, HIV/AIDS work that he's done, and he in the field heavy when it comes to vaccines. So people like, why they ain't got a vaccine for HIV/AIDS? This man right here is also intricate in that research study and trying to develop something that will resolve that issue as well among his people, because that's who he concerned about, his people. But nah, Kofi, it's a couple of them, and they ain't the only ones. You know what I mean? Yeah. See, Chavis like me. Chavis like, man, give me the Moderna. And it's only because Moderna studied. They built in different facilities, and they, even though they might have similar perspectives dealing with RNA, but they ain't the same. They two different vaccines. But Moderna, their studies is just a little bit different than Pfizer's because of the focus. Moderna decided to add something else in their study that Pfizer didn't. Not to say that it would negate Pfizer's data, because it doesn't. It's just that they also added a particular study that Pfizer's also doing right now, but didn't have in their initial release, which is positive. Still positive information. Yeah, see, and Malcolm is saying right there too. The reason why there's no vaccine for the HIV is that reason right there. It mutates too fast. So they got to figure out a way to actually hone in on the science behind it, where they actually can replicate a virus. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's a whole lot of them. But right now, we just got Moderna and Pfizer as the top. AstraZeneca is on deck. So now you're going to hear, Kofi, you're going to hear Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson. And then you'll hear some other companies that'll come behind it. But by the time we hear of any other companies coming behind it, those may be more of a conventional studies. The conventional way of vaccines by having a dead strand or something like that. And I don't want that. And then you'll have a study done by, one group that also will put out an mRNA vaccine that will test itself and the efficacy against all 5 of the mRNA vaccines, big mRNA vaccines, and we'll see what the efficacy rates and how the adverse effects are and all of that. So there's studies that we're gonna be able to get our hands on. But right now we're waiting on AstraZeneca data to come in, and we're hearing positive things about AstraZeneca. We already know what the side effects will be. There's mild side effects. There's no major level 4 side effects out of the mRNA vaccine from Moderna or Pfizer. There's no leading cause of death from the vaccines. There hadn't been nobody mutated, DNA changed. It hadn't been anybody who head blew off, grew a third nose, none of that craziness. So, everything is working the way that it needed to be working regarding those actual vaccines. But let me see here. Do I want to play any more of this? Nah, I'm gonna leave that right there. And we put him up on the screen for a reason. You know what I'm saying? I want to keep that out front. I'm gonna come back to this right here for a little bit, and then I'm gonna let them build about how long we've been on. Hour and a half. All right, I'm gonna let them build up about another 10 minutes, and I want y'all to pay attention to the next 10. And then, I'm gonna wrap up. I ain't gonna make this a long, drawn out show. And then we might come back for like a little, Q&A or after show and kind of kick it and kick up the dust.
And then there's deletions in the spike, as you know, and there's also an amino acid change near the furin site. which we know the furin site, cleavage site is important, but we don't know what this change does. They say something that's quite interesting. So they say similar to Danish cluster 5. What is Danish cluster 5? Is it a cookie? Sounds good, tasty. It is the viruses that went into mink and changed because virus goes into a new host. It changed. And remember, there were a number, 5 changes in that particular isolate where it was thought to abrogate or reduce neutralization with human convalescent sera. And that was a concern, of course, because a virus goes into a new host. And you know what? Humans are not all the same. So when a virus goes into people in Kent, England, they may be slightly different from everyone else. And that's why the virus diversifies and so forth. Anyway, they say the idea here is that it may suggest that the virus has replicated under different selection pressures, because the virus going into mink is a different selection pressure, right? And what about in people? People are not the same. And they say, well, maybe an immunocompromised patient, right? And they say there's a recent case report of an immunocompromised patient persistently infected with SARS-CoV-2, acquiring 10 mutations in spike over 154 days. Is that the Michigan report, Kathy, that we did? Might be, right?
The one from Adam Loring. I don't remember the number of mutations and the time.
But it was many days of reproduction.
Right.
And including N501Y, right? So this emerged in an immunocompromised patient. And so there's a theory, which is also on the virological.org, that maybe this originated in an immunocompromised patient, or maybe in people receiving convalescent sera, who knows, right? But just the idea that everybody's the same is wrong to think that. And that's why variants emerge in different parts of the world, because people are diverse, they're diverse conditions. Now, 501 is quite interesting, the residue. It's at the contact site of spice with ACE2. And it's been seen before, as we said. And so there's, some suggestion that maybe this is increasing receptor binding affinity, and that increases transmission. And I just think that's about as big a leap that you can make without any data, right? Because remember when this virus first arose, they said, the spike has incredibly high affinity, more than we would have ever predicted for ACE2. And now you're saying it's getting higher, and that's increasing transmission. I don't think that makes any sense, right? So you can do experiments to address that, but to speculate doesn't seem to make sense to me. But what's interesting about N501Y is that, if you remember, the Barrett group took SARS-CoV-2 and adapted it to efficiently infect mice using mouse ACE2. And the 2 amino acids in spike that do that are 499 and 500, right next to 501. So it's right at that interface. Okay, so there's some suggestion that this may be influencing ACE2 interaction. But there was some concern that this change might impact vaccine efficacy. It's at an antigenic site, but I don't think that 501Y, I don't think is a concern. There's a paper from September where they passaged SARS-CoV-2 in mice intranasally, and they end up with N501Y. And they show that when they immunized mice with just purified receptor binding domain protein, challenge with N501Y infection is blocked by the antibodies against the wild type protein. So I mentioned that yesterday, and then Theodora Hatsuhanu told me, yes, we looked at that variant in our paper. It's in eLife, where they went through every variant they could find and checked to see their reactivity with monoclonal antibodies. And N501Y does not change reactivity with a monoclonal directed at that site. So I'm not worried about that in terms of vaccine response. Of course, there are other changes as well that may be an issue.
Yeah, so I think there's one other thing that's really important to talk about in terms of vaccines. So as Vincent just mentioned, the paper that he talked about and the responses they were discussing were in response to a monoclonal antibody. Not
the mouse one. The mouse one from China from September is a polyclonal response.
Okay, so the important piece I wanted to bring up is exactly that, a polyclonal response. When you get a vaccine, say your spike mRNA vaccine, it will encode the entire spike protein. You will make the entire spike protein, and spike's a pretty big protein. So you will be making B cell antibody responses and T cell responses to many different portions of that spike protein, many different epitopes. And I don't remember where I saw this number now, given all the things I have read, but I saw something about the idea that perhaps spike might contain 20 epitopes.
Yeah, Alessandro Sette had told me that the other day, yeah.
And I feel like, perhaps there could be one of these mutations might change the response to one of those epitopes, but you would still have the other 19 making good responses and allowing for protection. And so given that size of spike and the number of epitopes that it contains, I'm not as worried about one of these particular mutations removing all vaccine-induced immunity.
Yeah, one of the things I read was somebody saying, there's lots of guns or lots of ammunition that the immune system has that's pointing at this. And so it's not something that we need to worry about.
And those are that's just the B cell response. Okay.
Right.
There are T cell epitopes as well. And it seems to me that the experiment, if you want to do an experiment to see if this has an effect, what you have to do is check for reactivity. You have to make a pseudotype virus or something like that with this in it, and you have to check for its neutralization by convalescent serum or serum from people who have been vaccinated, depending on what population you want to look at. And you can't just do one person, you have to do a bunch, because different people are going to have different responses. So it's a big experiment, okay?
And what I understand is that that's in progress, right? They're doing that in the UK with this variant. So we'll know. But just to be clear, this paper that I mentioned from September, Amy had given this to me the other day. They immunize mice with purified receptor binding domain of spike, right? So then the mice make a polyclonal response, and they infect them with the variant N501Y, and the variant reproduction is blocked by that polyclonal response. So that one change is not a concern in a polyclonal response. Okay. In this document, continuing in this NHE document, then there's an interesting graph showing the proportion of positive tests with this S dropout, right, over time. And it's a graph showing date. It goes from June to December. And the S dropout, again, being in this month, at least, this variant with the deletion in the spike gene. And you can see over time, they're just blips, less than 0.1 fraction of total tests, little blips. And then between August and September, there was a different deletion that arose, but then it went back down. In October, it went up and then down. And then at the beginning of, this looks like end of November, beginning of December, again, it goes all the way up, and they goes up to 0.7, which is almost 1, I guess. And then there's a table breaking it down by weeks. A percent of the variant, which is lacking these amino acids in spike. It goes from 5% in October 12th to 96% on November 30th. So this obviously is increasing in prevalence, right?
That's percent of the new variant in all of Delta 6970. So I don't think that's all of the viruses.
No.
I think that's what percentage of the dropouts are this variant. Okay.
Okay, yes.
That goes up to 96%.
Got it.
Okay, but the graph that you pointed to on the top, I think that's all. So that table is just saying at this point in time, 96% of the dropouts are this variant. Okay, so you can put that in your head while you're looking at this table that shows the S dropouts and shows that it goes up to 0.7. Okay, those are basically all going to be the variant.
Right, and the graph says about 70% of positive tests have this dropout, and then of those, 96% are the actual variant. So it's a lot, right?
Yeah, it's a lot, and that's in I don't know what. For the graph, I don't know exactly what area this is because this is regional. Okay, there are some there are hot spots for this going on. okay,
Yeah.
is not
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. All right, so they conclude we have this novel variant. It spread rapidly. We have assessed as having substantially increased transmissibility with high confidence. Further studies are underway. I think so. My view is that the transmissibility is based on the genomic characterization, which I don't think is appropriate, but you can have your idea. Amy reminded, we have a Slack channel. She reminded us that PCR, LAMP, RNA sequence, et cetera, none of those can determine the speed at which a virus can replicate or reproduce, which I would agree with. But I think we need to look at it. I'm not saying we don't. I just don't think you can make conclusions based just on those data. And does anyone? I think the things that are in that document are pretty much the same as the virological document.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap amongst these, among other things, because they're, some of the people are the same and that kind of stuff. And one of these documents went into real detail, almost down to supposing an index case about this idea that it was an immune compromised individual. More detail than I think was in that one, and I can't.
I think that's the virological one.
I got 3 or 4 documents here, and I can't find it again. But somewhere, and it's it's all speculative, or it's mostly speculative. But it's an interesting wrap.
The 2 documents to me, the Public Health England document is less referenced.
That's
throughout.
Right.
And they have a supporting figure at the end that's a bunch of graphs by region. And they're looking at the incidence over time. And even if you blow it up, it's illegible. But they at least tell you in the legend what the colors mean. But if you look at the graphs, there are some over time where the y-axis measure, which is something number of cases, I think it says. Anyway, that they're decreasing. But in the regions where the cases are staying flat or even increasing, they have a higher proportion of blue bars within these graphs, and the blue bars are the SG negative. In other words, the dropout. In other words, that's their surrogate marker for one of these variants. It's their, rather than sequencing the whole genome, if they get this result by PCR, they're assuming that it has this variation with this deletion in it. And those where it's staying flat or increasing, those are the ones where there's more of this blue colored graph in it. So that's one thing that's different. The other document is much more referenced. It's much more like a scientific paper, almost like a preprint. And as I was saying earlier, this is the one where they show the phylogenetic tree with the 3 lineages that really stood out for this one portion that caught everybody's eye. They kind of went, whoa. And I have to take their word for it. But then, and these are all open access, the figure 2 that shows this regression analysis across the x-axis is date of collection from January, March, up through, it goes to January of this year, but there's no data out there. So I thought I was a little confused. The data end in November. And then on the y-axis is the average per site genetic divergence from root. And they have like these 2 different lines. It's very striking. I'm not sure I'm capable of doing screen sharing, but it's really worth taking a look at. And that's what caught my eye, that these 2 sets of data, and this upper set for the lineage of this variant, which is known as B.1.1.7, the variant of concern, it is a different cluster of data points. And that really, I think, is eye-catching. So.
All right. So I'm gonna stop it right there. Like I said, she's dealing with, these articles, and they talking about the genome, and man, she go in like she be the quietest one, but she really like the smartest one outside of Vince. They know how to critique the actual data because they know what they're actually looking for. So when we're reading this to try to comprehend it, they already know. You heard this S numerous times. You know what I mean? You're talking about the spike protein variant, right? You know, look, plain language summary. You know what I'm saying? This is what we got to read, the plain language summary. But even still in the plain language summary, there's still other things that we got to deal with. And then they talk about the conflict of interest. You heard her mentioning about the graphs, and she went over, you know, the blue and all this other stuff. So just a lot of data to unpack. But again, description to the whole video is in the chat. That's where we at on that. I'm not gonna hold nobody up any further. We'll probably come back and we'll build on you know, after show or something like that, probably on Coffee Pie Side Research Team channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and subscribe. Also, make sure you go support the merch store, Family Connected Apparel, and go to coffeepiesidetv.com and purchase your spiritual combat. Now, I know some of y'all got some money, gift cards, or something like that for the holidays. You know, you supported Christmas. You did all that this morning. Now you can go online and go ahead and purchase that book. You know what I mean? Books is in. The books are in. Yep. They in. They're here.